If we similarly work the other way toward the Sun and calculate the longer periodic day of Mercury, we should find that Mercury, if in our plane, would rotate in about 11 days. Mercury is about 7 degrees removed from us in plane in the direction of higher pressures. It is, in fact, in about the plane of the maximum expansion pressure opposition of this solar tornado. So by calculating the increasing pressure resistance in that position, we find Mercury's day to be approximately 800,800 of our days. This means that the positive charge of Mercury is so preponderant that its day must be practically a continuous one. Let us for a moment consider the vast, unsuspected range of temperatures and densities of this solar system. The temperature of the sun's crust is presumed to be about 6,000 degrees. In reality, it goes into the inconceivable pressures of hundreds of billions of degrees. This is easily demonstrated. Consider, for example, the melting point of iron on this planet is 1,500 degrees. In the higher potential position of half this distance, or 45 million miles, iron would freeze at 12,000 degrees. At 22,500,000 miles, its melting point would jump up to 96,000 degrees. By continuing in the universal ratios for pressures, the figure leaps so amazingly fast that it is over, I don't even know how big, this is a 200 with 3 sets of zeros, I guess that's trillion, 200 trillion degrees, when still 187,500 miles away from the Sun, and 8 degrees away from its plane of high pressure. Consider this: one need no longer wonder at the tremendous speed of hydrogen expulsion from the Sun or be mystified by its corona. Density, being measured by present laws, would place this dimension in the Sun at more than 1,000,000 times the density of this planet instead of less than 1/2. Mass would correspondingly increase into the hundreds of billions instead of 332,000 times. Conversely, iron would melt on Jupiter's surface at about 2 degrees above our zero. With a few simple facts of position, rotation, periods, and other dimensions can be easily calculated. The astronomer of today must necessarily find markings to measure the dimensions of rotation. He can find none that are definite on Uranus, Neptune, or Mercury. Hence, his conclusion must be conjecture, and therefore unreliable. By the aid of the laws of motion herein contained, conjecture is removed from the science of astronomy, thus making it now possible for it to live up to its intent as an exact science. Any relative dimension in any position within a mass can be determined by applying to that position the laws of universal ratios. And I will read to you what's on this chart. It's called Universal Mathematics. Every wave begins at the center of a polyhedron which bounds it and heads toward 2 of its corners where it meets the next wave. Dimension chart number 4. Solidity of matter is an unstable condition due to an explosive disturbance in inertia. Motion alone holds matter in the appearance of solidity. The 3 inner inertial planes of every wave represent stability, and the 6 outer ones instability. So that is what is on that page. And now, the next chapter, and I need a new chart up here. Hold on. We're entering a part of the book where there's many charts on almost every page or every other page. So you're going to be seeing lots of charts here. This next chapter is called Expressions of Gravitation and Radiation, the Electric Charging Poles and Magnetic Discharging Bases. Every particle of matter in this universe is connected with every other particle of matter by electric charging poles, which are the controls of opposing electromagnetic cones of energy. The apexes of these opposing cones meet at the gravitative centers of every particle of matter. The bases of these opposing cones meet at the inertial planes which lie between any two masses. The gravitative center of every particle of matter is the telegraphic center of communication, and the electric poles are the channels of communication. By means of this connection, every particle of matter in the universe is gravitatively and radiatively informed of any change of dimension in any other mass. All mass simultaneously responds to these communications by a sympathetic, contractive, or expansive readjustment of its own dimensions. The electric poles are vortices, which control the northerly flowing electric stream and determine the southerly flowing magnetic stream. All energy expresses itself in motion. All motion is expressed in waves. All waves are sequentially evolved by electric actions into accumulations of mass around minute whirlpool storm centers. All whirlpool storm centers are formed by resistant magnetic reactions. All waves, all effects of motion, and all dimensions of motion within the wave are measured by the opposition of the electric poles and magnetic bases. Opposition between electric and magnetic flows begins on the south inertial planes. The two flow past each other at 180 degrees, and the opposition reaches its maximum at an angle of 90 degrees to the inertial planes. During this progression, the 180 degrees of opposition is rigidly maintained. The electric pole measures the northern opposed distance limitations of the wave at trough and crest in points of wave altitudes, which we shall call the overtones. The magnetic base measures the southern opposed area limitations of the wave, which we shall call the harmonic circles. Thus are distance and area the first two dimensions of motion, born of inertia. By connecting the overtones with every point of the harmonic circles, opposing cones are produced. This is volume, the third dimension of motion, born of inertia. Energy is simultaneously conceived in inertia and sequentially expressed in motion away from inertia. All dimensions of energy, both gravitational and radiational, are simultaneously marked off in inertia and sequentially transferred in expression to the wave which records sequences of motion. Thus, in time, the fourth dimension of motion, born of inertia. By the expression of concept in opposing cones of generation and radiation, sex, the fifth dimension, is born of inertia. Within the opposing cones by reproduction through sex union exerted in sequence and in opposing pressures and potentials, the sixth and seventh dimension are born of inertia. By resistance to the opposing electromagnetic flow temperature, the eighth dimension is born in inertia. And so are all the dimensions born of inertia, by overcoming it and expressing their opposition in alternating oscillations. And so also are all of the opposites of each dimension born of their relative positions in the opposing cones of energy. The nearer to the axis and to the apex of the cone, the greater the density, temperature, pressure, potential, power time, and all effects of electropositive preponderance. This is the direction of areas of increasingly high contraction pressure. The nearer the base of the cone, the greater the tenuity, the speed time, and the tendency to ionize, and the lower the temperature, pressure, potential, and all effects of electronegative preponderance. This is the direction of areas of increasingly low expansion pressure.